Thanks for joining us on Streetside, the official Street Medicine Institute Student Coalition podcast.
My name is Elena Iliadis. I'm with Georgetown University School of Medicine, and it's important to be here as future healthcare workers and just as a citizen to advocate for the right to exist for people experiencing homelessness.
Hi, my name is Chris Kapp. I'm with the Homeless Memorial Blanket Project, and I'm here today because housing is a human right and that people's blankets and pillows and personhood should not be in question. It should not be weaponized or politicized. Grants Pass is on the wrong side of history. The answer to homelessness is housing, not handcuffs.
Welcome to Streetside. My name is Vin Dang, and today we're covering a crucial moment in the fight for the rights of individuals experiencing homelessness. Grants Pass v. Johnson is a Supreme Court case that has redefined how cities now handle homelessness. We're taking you right to the rally, which was held on the Supreme Court steps, where advocates, nonprofit organizations, and street medicine providers have gathered to make their voices heard. It was a battle over public spaces, dignity, and the right to exist without being criminalized.
My name is Nakia Nwala. I'm a Georgetown medical student with Georgetown Street Medicine Outreach. I think it's super important for us as future healthcare workers to be here today to protest the criminalization of homelessness. The criminalization of homelessness is a clear health issue, and it's a clear public health issue as well. We know that policing and incarceration of people experiencing homelessness has a dramatic effect on their health outcomes, so I think it's really important that all healthcare workers are aware of the health impacts of homelessness.
My name is Stephen Lamb. I'm here today to show support because I think it's important to show solidarity with all of the people and organizations here to let the Supreme Court know that criminalizing homelessness is not the right solution. I think criminalizing homelessness definitely certifies as cruel and unusual punishment.
So, if overturned, Johnson versus Grants Pass will make it harder for unhoused people to get the care and the services they need.
Deborah lost her job, and since Grants Pass has no shelter and no housing, she lived outside for 10 years. Sadly, like far too many of her neighbors who sleep outside, Deborah died without housing in the richest country in the world before she could see the case that she started reach the Supreme Court. I want to honor Deborah's legacy today and the legacy of the thousands of our neighbors who die each year without housing.
It's not just about laws and policies. It's about life and health, and how providers and advocates are stepping up to care for and defend the rights of those experiencing homelessness. This rally, held on the day that the Supreme Court has begun deciding on the Grants Pass v. Johnson case, was a show of solidarity for people living on the streets. Amanda Undery is the CEO of Funders Together to End Homelessness, and what I really appreciated about her was her emphasis on the racial roots of injustices against individuals experiencing homelessness. Why is it that Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks are treated with handcuffs and not given hope and encouragement? This major disparity is something she highlights most in her speech.
Especially our housing systems, and it is the reason our housing and homelessness crisis impacts Black, Indigenous, and people of color disproportionately. But what brings me joy and hope, what gives me hope, friends, is that when we work together and when the rich resources of our country are coupled with love and care, we can focus on the actual solution to homelessness, housing. I have hope because despite our country's long history of racism, we can show the world what is possible when we recognize the problem, when we learn from our past mistakes, when we listen to the people most impacted and start to repair the harm done. And I have hope because the solutions to homelessness are possible when we welcome our neighbors inside, when we look around our community and say, hey, that building is not being used, that could be someone's home.
One of the speakers at the rally was the Reverend Dr. Barbara II, who really called on the Supreme Court, and really society in the U.S., to acknowledge the human rights of individuals experiencing homelessness.
And the Constitution says that until we establish justice, we cannot have domestic tranquility. That's the amendment they're debating in the Supreme Court, the 8th Amendment. says that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Instead of arresting the unhoused and fining them for sleeping in streets and parks, we should be investing in affordable housing. We should be investing more in affordable housing than we are investing in war and tax cuts for the greedy. Instead of trying to push poor people to the next town, we need to demand living wages in every town, in every city, in every county.
While amongst the crowd, I got to hear from amazing advocates and activists, such as students at the Georgetown University School of Medicine, Christy Respris, the CEO of Pathways to Housing in DC, Dr. Amy Angel, founder and director of outreach from the H3 Project, and Michael Coleman, the co-director of leadership development from the United Workers.
Sure. My name is Christy Respris. I'm the CEO of Pathways to Housing DC, and we're here today in front of the Supreme Court because we know there's only one solution to ending homelessness, and that's housing. Period. Stop. And housing for people is for everybody. Housing is a human right. And then services for the people who need it, whether it's health care, mental health care, substance use care. But one universal thing unites everybody who's experiencing homelessness is that they don't have housing. Period. So we have to start there, and criminalization leads to more homelessness. It doesn't end homelessness. It's really just a no-brainer, and I think every American should understand that. Right? Housing ends homelessness.
Okay, so my name's Dr. Amy Angel. I'm with the H3 Project. Why it's important to be here today? Literally, housing is a human right. It's a shameful thought to me for folks not to be here today, because this is, especially when there's no other alternative for individuals. So this is what we work for every day. I mean, we're street outreach based, so 80% of the time is on the street year-round on holidays, because homelessness doesn't stop on holidays. Folks deserve to have an alternative.
Yeah, my name is Michael Coleman. I am with the United Workers, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. And this event is important because our country seems to think that penalizing people is going to solve the problems. Locking people up for being homeless is not a solution to the homeless problem. I feel privileged and obligated to be here because things need to change in this country. We are living in one of the wealthiest countries on the planet and still fighting with such trivial things. And just looking around, there's so many beautiful people from all over the country, different races, different ages, different religious beliefs. We all came here to challenge these structures and these laws that allow this to continue. This is a huge atrocity. This is a crime against humanity, and this should be framed as such. And I think a lot of people is here to voice their frustrations with our government right now.
Dr. Rajni Shankar Brown from Stetson University also spoke at the rally, highlighting the impacts of environmental and climate changes that are constantly affecting individuals experiencing homelessness and housing instability.
Homelessness in our nation reflects decades of failed housing policies, soaring rents, stagnant wages, intensifying climate impacts. It also includes diverse stories. It includes our veterans who have sacrificed to serve for our nation. It includes our grandmothers and grandfathers, adults above the age of 65. It includes our babies, our children, our youth, our future. And homelessness and environmental degradation disproportionately impacts Indigenous, Black, and Brown communities. But it impacts all of us. And it is up to us to work together to disrupt this unacceptable and criminal narrative. We must protect human life and our planet.
Another speaker was Donald Whitehead of the National Coalition for the Homeless, who really galvanized the audience and reminded us about the values and rights established by the Constitution and how housing should be our first-line treatment for homelessness.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among those are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Sadly, we are compelled to continue a path towards constantly breaking those promises, subjecting our neighbors, our veterans, our seniors, and our children to harsh penalties for a lifestyle that they do not choose. People do not choose to be homeless. They are forced into homelessness by a safety net riddled with holes. Homelessness is not the result of a moral deficiency by people experiencing homelessness. Homelessness is the result of broken promises following deinstitutionalization, the failed strategies of mass incarceration, and redlining, among a long list of broken public policies. Because of these failures, people experiencing homelessness are not met with open arms or compassion. They are confronted with handcuffs, fines, and violence. It is impossible to pursue happiness on the ground in McPherson Square. It is impossible to pursue happiness in the backseat of a Buick in Baltimore, Maryland. And as I end today, again, I want them to hear you. Housing, not handcuffs. Housing, not handcuffs. Housing, not handcuffs. America, do what's right.
On June 28th, 2 months following the rally, the Supreme Court voted in a 6-3 decision to overturn the previous ruling of Grants Pass versus Johnson, essentially allowing cities to criminalize homelessness by arresting or imposing fines on unhoused people for sleeping outside, even when no shelter alternatives are available. It is an unfortunate truth that our justice system has further criminalized homelessness, but this is not a death blow to the movement. It's a signal to all who believe in a housing-first approach to take action. If you feel alone in this, remember, there are advocates across the country ready and willing to lend a hand. My name is Vin Dang. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Street Side, and remember, we can't keep quiet anymore.
And we won't be silent. And we won't be silent anymore. One more time. And we won't be silent anymore.
Whether you're a new or returning listener, I'm really excited to be sharing this space with you. New episodes will be coming out for Season 2 of Street Side. We have amazing conversations coming your way. If you have any suggestions, advice, or want us to interview someone, feel free to email us at studentcoalition@streetmedicine.org. Check out our show notes for more information. Until next time.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individuals included and are not representative of the opinions of the Street Medicine Institute or the Street Medicine Institute Student Coalition. Do not use this podcast as medical advice and instead see your own provider for medical care.